Hi everyone. Today we are going to see about Aristotle's On Poetics. In this unit, we'll discuss Aristotle on Poetics, which consists of his views on all forms of literary art, especially tragedy. By the end of this lecture, you are expected to learn about evaluate Plato's and Aristotle theory of mimesis, explain Aristotle's definition of tragedy, six parts of tragedy, evaluation of importance and plots of characters, and we are going to discuss about the literature and how it is being done. Now, we are going to see about who is Aristotle. Aristotle was born on 384 to 322 BC and is a Greek philosopher, thinker, and critic. Plato's student, and he is the father of drama, the first who laid the principle of tragedy. So his main works are on rhetoric, on soul, on metaphysics, analytic physics, de anima, Nicomachean ethics, and poetics. Ironically, the first objection to Plato's theory of mimesis came from his disciple Aristotle, the first theorist to defend literature and poetry in his Poetics against Plato's objection. He laid the first principle of theory of poetics, which he defined mainly as drama or tragedy. Aristotle agrees with Plato in calling the poet an imitator and the creative art that imitation. Both argue that the artist imitates nature, thus, a work of art is reflection of nature. He imitates one of three objects, things they are or were, that is, what is present or past, things as they were said or ought to be, what is commonly believed, or things as they ought to be, what is ideal. However, there have been different views about the functions of imitation in art and literature. For Aristotle, there is natural pleasure in imitation, which is an born instinct in men. This pleasure enables the children to learn his earliest lesson in speech and conduct from those around him. In a growth up child where there is another instinct helping him to make him a poet, the instinct of harmony and rhythm. In the Poetics, Aristotle deals and he disagrees with his master Plato. While Plato argues the art is an imitation of imitation, Aristotle believes that imitation does not need copying life as it is, but it is representing the human nature. For Plato, art is harmful and dangerous. Aristotle believed that if you encounter a work of art, you will be purified, harmonized, and you will also try to be healthy like poetry is healthy to society. He argues that poetry is an imitation of man in action. In tragedy, the writer imitates poets' perfection and positive actions rather than their characters. The word tragedy literally means goat song, probably referring to the practice of giving a goat as a sacrifice or a prize at the religious festivals in honor of god Dionysus. Aristotle's definition of tragedy. Tragedy then is an imitation of an action that is seriously complete and certain magnitude in the language established and has been kind of artistic ornament, the serval kind of being found in separate parts of the play in the form of action, not with the pity of fear and also with the purification catharsis of these similar emotions. Therefore, he considers tragedy the noblest form of poetry in his time because it imitates an action and arouses pity and fear. Through the pity and fear affecting the proper purgation catharsis of these are similar emotions. Tragedy provides audience with a pleasure that comes from pity and fear by the way of imitation. An outlet of the dangerous emotion of pity and fear, this effect is called cathar, the peculiar tragic effect, the feeling of being wasted or cleaned. Unlike Plato, who said that poets lack creative powers and should be banished from society, Aristotle argues that his world is real but incomplete. So the poet seeks to complete it through the imitation. Thus, poets are both imitators and creators. So, this is a small thing that the scene with altar of a Greek tragedy about 400 to 350 BC. So, Aristotle, six parts of tragedy. Every tragedy, therefore, must have six parts, which parts determine its quality, namely plot, character, thought, diction, melody, and spectacle. A work of tragedy should consist of these elements. The elements of tragedy are plot or mythos, character, the role quality of an agent, thought, the intellectual quality of an agent, diction, the composition of words of dialogue, melody, that is lyrical song, spectacle, the overall visual appearance of the stage and the actors, the costume and setting. The plot, it has six parts. That is, the plot of a tragedy should be logic and flow, that is a reasonable and realistic manner. The best tragic plot is single and complex. Without action, there cannot be tragedy. At the same time, characters are required to do action. This is the change of ignorance and knowledge, realizing cause of misery to catharsis. The protagonist, the tragic hero, moves from good fortune to disaster, then to death. The tragic hero has a moment of enlightenment near the end of the story. Tragic hero understands what he has done wrong, how he contributed to the tragic situation. The story often ends with the death of the tragic hero. So, this how you can see the pity and fear, that is suffering, pathos, and catharsis, that is noble, the eligibility to achieve greatness, but through a weakness, or but how it can be done with tragic flaw in his character, falls into the depths of misery and often to the death. So, this how the Aristotle deals with on poetics. You can see, and we have concluded here. Thank you.